Hey there and welcome to the UkeStuff channel and welcome to this full UkeGuide review of this instrument. This is the Kadence UKCE01. This one is selling on Amazon right now for $24.99. I'm getting ahead of myself right now, but that's an amazing price for any instrument that isn't just a toy. And not only is it a concert ukulele that's functional, there's some work that needs to be done. We'll get to that. But it also has electronics. Now, they are older, dated electronics. That is to be fair. But at the same time, $25 for an ukulele with electronics, unbelievable. So I had to buy one, had to review it, and actually I have a sister of this model that's coming too because that was also selling at the same price. So watch for that one in the future. So what we're going to do in this video, like all the UkeGuide reviews, first of all, we're going to look at subjective categories, things that I look at with every instrument. Then we'll look at specifications, and then we will wrap it up with a summary statement and a UkeGuide rating for this instrument. So let's start with the subjective categories. We've already talked about the price, $24.99. Now, how about the value? Well, that's an amazing value if the electronics even work, because theoretically you could remove the electronics out of this instrument and place them in another instrument and almost break even for what a set of electronics is going to cost you with the actual module and shipping. So yeah, the value, this is on the very, very highest end of potential value as long as it works as an instrument, which, to kind of give it away, it does, but it needs some help. Now, not only do you get the instrument, you also get a tuner. So, I mean, remember, this is $24.99. So you get a tuner, and so that altogether there is worth much more than that. And then you get a pretty much useless gig bag. It is a dust cover. For example, if you buy a flight travel ukulele, it comes in a bag. Actually, now they're even a little better than this. It comes with a light dust cover, but with a travel ukulele like that, plastic back and plastic neck, it is meant to get bumped around a little bit, and the cover actually just keeps the strings safe and gives you an easier way to carry it around. This instrument as a laminate wood instrument would definitely benefit from a better case, but you know what, you just save so much on the instrument, you can go buy a better case. So that's what it comes with. That's a pretty amazing value. Now let's talk about the build quality. This is where this instrument sort of suffers a little bit. First of all, it's rough finishing all over. It's a flat finish, as you can see. It's not a gloss. And I'm still struggling, even with my Flight Victoria that has a similar finish. I kind of like gloss. I kind of like gloss finishes. So I personally am not such a big fan of that sort of flat finish, but it's a flat finish that needs a little more finishing. So if you have some ultra fine sandpaper, this is 3000 grit, and I also have a 2000 grit here. What I'm going to do after this review is I'm going to actually sand this all down and deal with the sharp edges. I mean, there are sharp edges on the ABS. There are a couple spots where, like down here in the ABS, it's kind of a little ragged right where the ABS runs into the ukulele. You can kind of see like almost like cut marks on the ukulele. But again, when you're dealing with a $25 ukulele, you're willing to kind of sacrifice a few of those things for that price point. And if you can hear this, massively sharp fret ends, a very, very distinct heel. You know, no attempt to hide that. It does have a scarf joint way up here on the headstock, which is kind of nice. It's not a sort of mid-neck joint, which I've even seen on a Koloa product lately. So we'll get into that in a few weeks as well. But otherwise, you know, the foundations are there. Now, how about the inside? What does that look like? Well, let's go take a look. Look at the Kadence UKCE01 ukulele. This has a laminate spruce top with laminate rosewood back and sides. Okay, looking at the inside, you have notch kerfing of two different sizes. Look at the size of the kerfing over there and the size of the kerfing over there on the top. It's kind of crazy. And looking at the bottom, the kerfing is not as mismatched on the bottom. Over here is our drill through to the output jack. So So you can kind of see that. You can see that the piezo pickup is just really too long. Look at how long this goes. And that rattles inside of the instrument and is going to cause issues. So realistically, the electronics here could have been a little better treated. There you can see the extra long cable without any sort of cable tie, also for the output jack going to the control box right over here. And other than that, you can see the bracing on the top. You can see that there's a bridge plate there, quite a bit of excess glue coming off of it. And there is the tail block. So that's a quick look at the bottom side of it. Let's take a look at the upper bout. Okay, looking at the upper bout here, you can see the notch curving up there. Not as mismatched inside over here. You can see the horizontal beam there going across, or the horizontal bracing there. When you're zooming in like this, it looks like a beam. It's just a thin brace. And ultimately a pretty traditional build. The laminate actually seems to be a pretty decent laminate. Some of the cheaper laminates, when you take a look at them, they end up having like no pattern on the inside at all, and it's just, you know, sort of plywood. Well, this stuff has a pattern both on the inside and the outside, so that's really nice to see. Big glue stain on the bottom here, so that's kind of sloppy. So it's a messy build, but again, for an ukulele that's $25 at the moment, that's pretty amazing. All right, and that's our quick look at the inside of the Kadence UKCE01. Okay, so we're back. So yeah, you know, it is what you'd expect at this price point. You're not going to find perfection there. The mismatched kerfing, you know, for sizes. You've got glue spill. You've got wires that really aren't taken care of very well. So in terms of build quality, this is on the lower end. Now, I don't think they're critical flaws. That's really important to note, is that these things are cosmetic and they're not critical. They can generally, most of them, with the exception of the little binding thing there, which I don't even really mind that much on an instrument of this price. Everything here is livable and fixable for the most part. So they're not critical flaws, but it's certainly not a perfect build by any means. Now, how about the appearance? Okay, I've already mentioned that I'm not as big a fan of a flat finish ukulele like this. I don't know why, it doesn't appeal to me as much as a gloss finish. But that said, you do get the mahogany. It's sort of a plain, paler mahogany. You know, you do have the controls on the side, and you do have the jack there. You have ABS binding on the bottom and the top. You do have a rosette, and even though we'll talk about it later, you even get closed gear tuners that work just fine, which is what you'd expect. Most tuners work on most ukuleles these days. So overall, it's pretty attractive. It looks better than it feels right now because, again, it needs some of that finishing. Sanding, I think, really will help it a lot, as well as dealing with, you know, the sharp fret ends. So in terms of appearance, it's not quite plain. It's getting there. It has some nice features. It just needs a little TLC, again, with the build to sort of finish it nicely. Now, in terms of availability, I don't honestly know how long these will be around. Someone posted on the channel here that Kadence is an Indian brand. Now, I would imagine that they are still ukuleles that are imported from China to India, and they're selling them here in the United States right now. And that price differential probably between India and the United States allows them probably to sell them so inexpensively. So it's right now, these are a great value. I'm not sure how long they will be around, but they're going to end up being great kit, you know, sort of kit values. If you want to buy an ukulele and spend some time to make it a little better by doing some of the finishing yourself, that's really kind of a win-win situation here. Or if you want to just have an ukulele to harvest parts from, you can't buy a neck and tuning gears and a fretboard for $25 right now. You certainly can't get a bridge and the saddle and the nut and electronics. So, I mean, even if you hated the ukulele, you could, if you were a builder or a luthier, you could salvage a lot of these parts to, for example, make a cigar box ukulele or something like that. So there's a lot to be liked about what you see on this instrument. So yeah, the availability, they're available now. How long will they be available at $25 or even slightly more? I don't know. I don't know how long Kadence is in the game, or if this is just clearing out their product to not sell here anymore. I don't know. I don't know what that is. So if they're here, if you want one, get one now. Now, in terms of playability, there's a few things to know. First of all, it is a 35 millimeter nut with slightly wider spacing than many other 35 millimeter nuts. So it's comfortable to play. The neck is pretty thick and chunky. You do have the sharp fret ends that you will definitely probably have to deal with. But the thing that I'm okay with right now but concerned about is that the action is really low action. Now, it's not buzzing right now, but I am concerned about what could happen in the future. I live in Wisconsin and teach in Minnesota, and if I have this ukulele around when the humidity starts to drop in the winter and the heat goes on inside, I worry about what the neck might do. So if that neck moves just a little bit, you could have strings laying right on the frets if the action is that low. So it works for right now, but be interested to see how it would handle a big change in humidity in the future. Now, in terms of sound quality, it's actually pretty surprisingly decent for a $25 ukulele. It's very warm. It has, again, Aquila strings on it, or Aquila-like strings, you know, that sort of opaque white color there. But it has some decent sustain. And you can hear the tonal response across the whole spectrum, but it is missing sort of a sparkle. And we all have biases when we look at ukuleles or instruments. I like ukuleles that have a clear tone and have overtones and are bright and sparkly. I like that in an ukulele. I'm not a big fan of dark sounding instruments in that context, or muted instruments. So this one, it's not muted. It's got some good volume, but it's a warmer tone. So if this were to stay with me in the long run, I would probably try fluorocarbon strings on it. I might try something like Worth Browns. And you do have to keep in mind that it is a laminate spruce top. Now I'm going to just stop for 1 second and just mention that Kadence's Amazon listing page is a mess when it comes to this instrument. It is all over the place, describing it as different things. I think it even lists it as a spruce and rosewood. This is not rosewood, that's laminate mahogany. And it actually says that later in that entire listing. So Kadence's actual product page on Amazon is a mess with this. So be very careful as you read through that. But this is not a solid spruce top. It is a laminate spruce top, and it is a laminate back and sides. Now, that said, it could be a laminate spruce top that's made out of laminate spruce, not just unknown woods with a spruce top layer. Now, if it is a laminate spruce made of actual spruce, then it could carry some of the tonal characteristics of spruce, which tends to be a brighter wood. So in that case, you might not want clear fluorocarbons, but something maybe like a Worth Brown to try that. Again, then you're buying strings that cost a good percentage of the price of the instrument. So there's some give or take there. These Aquila-like strings work. They work on the instrument, they're acceptable, but I would probably try something just for my own personal taste in what I like to hear on an ukulele. One of the things that I do in every one of these reviews is I use the app Tonal Energy Tuner to let you see the harmonic energy series, both when I strum a chord and then what happens with the sustain. So here is this instrument on the C chord. The sustain is actually longer than what Tonal Energy Tuner is picking up today. I have no idea why it's not picking up, but it is holding out a little bit longer than that, but it's all on the low end. So a warm sound, which again is kind of surprising for a spruce-based instrument. All right, now that we've talked about the subjective categories, let's go over the specifications. It is a concert ukulele, and the scale length from nut to saddle is exactly 15 inches. There are 18 frets, 14 to the body. There are no side position markers, which is probably what you would guess. I still wish that every company would do side position markers at this point. The body style is a traditional double bout ukulele. The soundboard is made out of laminate spruce. The back and sides are made out of laminate mahogany with a black ABS binding that looks pretty nice. The fretboard is rosewood. It is not a radius fretboard. And the bridge is a rosewood bridge. It is a tie bar bridge. You have what appears to be a plastic nut and a plastic saddle, and the saddle is not compensated. It's a flat satin finish, so again, that's something that I'm not a huge fan of, but maybe it will grow on me over time. And again, I need to use some very fine sandpaper to finish the job here. The overall length is 24 inches exactly, and it weighs 1 pound, 2.7 ounces, and that's with the electronics. Now, I did not weigh it with the battery in it. I do have the battery in it right now, so it would actually be a little heavier than that with the battery. The tuners are sealed closed gear tuners. The action is really quite low. At the first fret, it's less than 0.5 millimeters. At the 12th fret, it's 1.75 millimeters. That's nearly a millimeter lower than usual, and that's why I'm worried about, like, over a winter, what if the neck moved due to humidity at all? Would you be having buzzing problems? Potentially. Now, that all said, once you deal with the sharp fret ends, if you have really low action like that, it's super easy to play. So there's some give or take there as well. The nut width is 35.11 millimeters, and the space between each string at the first fret is 9 millimeters, which is a little bit, just a touch, wider than average for a 35 millimeter nut. It is 29.15 millimeters from G to A at that first fret as well. The other thing I like to do is to look at the depth of the neck from the top of the strings to the bottom of the neck. Now remember, the action is pretty low on this one. It's still 21.86 millimeters from the top of the strings to the bottom of the neck at the third fret. So that's a pretty chunky neck overall. All right, so we've talked about subjective issues. We've talked about the specifications. Let's do one more thing. It is an electroacoustic ukulele. So let's plug it in. And I want to let you hear what that sounds like a little bit. Now I have an amplifier down to my right, and it's set up, I don't know, it's clear. There's no effects or anything like that. And the controls are very basic. So you have a setting for treble, you have a setting for bass, and you have a setting for volume. And to the left is greater, to the right is lower. That seems a little backwards to me, but it's probably been true on others of these UK 2000 models. I just don't use these a whole lot. So let's see what we get. Not very much coming out. Let me turn up the volume a little bit. It's a very fair distribution of tone. No string is really louder than the others, but you do get a lot of the hit of each note. Even if I turn down the bass, you can still hear each one of those being plucked quite a bit. But the system works just fine. So if you're looking to amplify yourself and to play a little bit, you will have the ability to do that for a very low amount of money. All right, now that we've talked about the subjective issues, we've talked about the specifications, let's summarize the instrument and give it a UkeGuide rating. So once again, this is the Kadence UKCE01 Laminate Spruce Laminate Mahogany Concert Ukulele. These were $49 back a couple months ago, then they dropped to about $30, and they're currently $24.99. I don't know how long that price is going to last. It doesn't look like a sale price. That is a surprisingly low amount of money for an ukulele, not to mention a electroacoustic ukulele or an ukulele that even comes with a tuner. I don't really think I would count the cover as anything really to write home about. It has some nice features. So there are a few things you're going to want to do with it if you buy one of these. You're going to want to probably smooth out the finish. You're going to deal with sharp fret ends. You may have to deal with loose chords and chord management on the inside. So yeah, you're going to have to put up with some of that for that price point. But that's okay. It's a $25 ukulele, right? I mean, that's throwaway money in our culture on an ukulele that should be able to last, as long as someone takes care of it. As I rate ukuleles, I give them a score between 0 and 5 ukuleles. Because of the finishing issues, I have to give this one a 2.5. A brand new player might be discouraged by some of the problems. Sharp ends, sharp frets, potential rattling of chords on the inside, things that you're going to have to deal with. Now, if these things came a little better wrapped up, sharp fret ends are pretty easy to deal with. Having to sand down an ukulele is not something you really should ever have to do. When you have a electronic system in ukulele, it needs to have no way that it can rattle. So those are things that really probably should be taken care of, even if you had to pay $10 to $15 more for the instrument. So I think a 2.5 is fair. But that said, low action, and it sounds pretty good, particularly for a $25 ukulele. Yeah, so 2.5, and if you address those things, I mean, you're looking at a much better ukulele, and you can do a lot of that on your own. Just not everybody's willing to do that, and that's why it has that low of a rating. All right, thanks so much for joining me in this review. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll be back soon with some more Uke stuff for you.